Good morning, everybody,
Good
and welcome
morning.
to. Hello, hi Liz, how are you?
Pretty good. Thursday. We're on a roll now.
Absolutely, so close to the weekend now, but yep,
Yeah.
still stuff to do before we get there, but we'll see.
Mhm.
So hello everyone, and welcome to our latest Masterclass Month webinar. So today, as you can see here, we're going to be talking about mastering standard and custom reports. So this is, again, just a fundamental area of Workflow Max. We're going to let people just jump in and give them a bit
Yeah.
of time to join. But yeah, definitely going to be some interesting elements to the topic that we can discuss today. So we'll just move over onto our usual welcome screen and we'll do the
I w
introductions. I'm sure everybody has met us before, Liz, but hi, Liz. How are you? And tell us a bit.
Well, I am Liz from Ginger Snap. I'm a Workflow Max implementation partner. Have been for quite a few years now. Won't go into that. All sorts of implementations. I quite like meeting different businesses. It's really interesting, isn't it? Just to dip into a different sector, see how people do business, how they run their projects. So all
Absolutely.
interesting stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. So, well, thank you very much, Liz. And always good to have you with us on the webinars. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm David from Valued Academy, and I am also a Workflow Max implementation partner, also many years served. I'm not going to talk about that either because it makes me feel old. But certainly, I would say that yes, the people interaction is always the best part of this. It's helping people to get the most out of their system and really make an impact in terms of running their business successfully, being able to make those informed choices that help them get to that next level. So it's yeah, it's
Mm.
always fun. But as we
You
will
tend
see,
to see
um,
No, I was saying you tend to see the accounts that we see that run nice and smoothly. Those are the ones that have mastered custom reporting because that is
funnily,
that's just
yeah,
kind of the last bit of the jigsaw, isn't it? You've got your data in, but you need to be able to extract it. And yeah.
absolutely true. I can't agree more. Um, yeah, reporting is just that. I mean, the getting information into the system is only really one half of that puzzle. The other is getting that information out and getting it out in the way that helps you. Everybody has their
Mm,
own requirements, so it is making sure that you get what you need, really. That's exactly what it is.
mm,
So as we will see, we've got quite a little bit to go through today. It's not, again, it's not that complex. This is really just an introduction into what is possible in terms of reporting within Workflow Max. And as the name of the masterclass suggests, we're going to break that down into the difference between standard reporting and custom reporting. We'll go through a bit of the basics first in terms of that and what the differences are. In terms of the report types, we'll have a look at some examples of each. We'll certainly talk about when it's best to use one type as opposed to the other type of reporting. And then in terms of a custom report, because the standard reports are already there, they're pre-built for you, hence they're standard. It's really quite easy to get to grips with those. You can sample them as much as you like. They're not going anywhere. You can't harm them. In terms of your custom reporting, there is a little bit of knowledge to be gathered about that, and it's really about how you put a custom report together. So you'll see
yeah.
here, broken it down into the 5 steps of building a report. Again, nothing too complex in there, but it's a bit like chess. Learning the rules is very simple. Mastering the darn thing can take quite some time. So
Mm.
it is
Bit trial and
definitely
error.
it is absolutely, even at our great age and experience, it is, and I do feel old today. It is very much a case of working through a process of, does this work? No. In which case, move on to the next possible option and try that. So it is just that trial and error.
Mm,
Um, in terms of working with your custom reports, again, we'll talk about some samples, some examples that might work. We'll literally run through the process of building a report or two with you as part of this. And then we'll share some resources at the end so that you are able to go away and have a try of this for yourselves. So yeah,
mm,
that is the plan.
And when
So
we do the
now,
custom reports, I would say do shout out if there's a particular one that you've really been struggling with or you'd like to see us have a crack at. Yeah, I know I'm
yeah,
opening the door there, but
you
um,
said it now.
yeah,
Pandora's box has been opened, but
I know. But that's what
No,
the webinar's for.
no, absolutely. If nothing else, it would be really interesting to see which reports people find perhaps the most tricky because,
Mm,
you know, we've been doing this for a very long time and I mean, I don't know about yourself, Liz, but certainly I am guilty of tending to revert directly to a custom report rather than, say, looking at the standard
I
because,
do. I do.
yeah, I just pull the tables together and say, there, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
There
So
may
then
be
the client says to you, "There's a standard one for this," and you think, "Oh
I have
yes."
had that before. Yeah, oh yes, of course. So certainly there is. Yes,
Yeah.
I think if we'll see the productivity report, it's probably a very, very good
Mm-hmm.
example of that.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. So,
Yeah.
without further ado, we will jump into the product now. Liz, were you gonna give us a little bit of it? Was it you first or me? I can't remember. We're gonna have a little rundown.
You, yeah, you're going to do the rundown. So.
Yeah, right we are. So let's have a look at reporting within the system. You can see that on your green toolbar, you have the reports tab at the top. If you click on the drop down option there, you'll see that it says reports. You may, if this has been set up for you for a while, have a list of report names underneath. These are your favorites, as it says. If I click onto reports, then what we will see is that we've got a list. And this, some are standard. And as we go down, some have other names as opposed to standard. These are all of your custom reports. And you can see that obviously there is no author nor created by on the standard reports. There is a created by on the custom reports. Also tells you not only the last time the report was run, but it will tell you the date on which it was created. So this, again, very, very easy for you to understand who's been working on building these in the system for you. Reports are controlled. So in terms of your staff privileges, you will have either access to the standard reporting, or you may be given access to building and viewing custom reporting as well. You don't necessarily have to have a special level of access to be given the visibility of a custom report, which we will see when we go through the steps of who can see that particular report. You can see on the left-hand side, I have a number of little yellow stars next to certain reports, and these are our favorites. So I can favorite my standard reports, but I can also favorite my custom reports as well. So this list at the top is essentially a blend. These are just the reports that mean the most to me. And that is personal to me logged in. It is not everybody else. It is just me. So they will need their own list of favorites sorted out. It's really easy to do so. You just tick it and within a moment that highlights in the yellow. And then if I was to, I don't know, might need to refresh the screen. No, non-invoiced is there. It's immediately appeared as part of my favorites.
Yeah.
You'll see from this list, we can search for a report. So if I search for a product, it will thin that down for me and find exactly what I'm looking for. In terms of these options here, if I want to thin this out and just look at my favorites, I can do so. Or if I just want to look at the standard reports, or if I just want to look at the custom reports, then I can be quite specific about just the groupings that I want to look at. You'll notice that there will be filters in here as well. They're not there yet. So again, keep an eye out. Eventually these will become live and you will be able to use other filters in terms of accessing this. So things like reports created by certain people, reports that include certain people, or whatever it might be. We'll see what those filters will give you in due course.
Should we just quickly show the user access to reports, as in the permissions? The two,
yeah.
You need two permissions to get custom and standard reports on the user record. Indeed.
So if we go into business and settings, we're going to go into the staff list, and I will use my little fakey person here, Dave Smith. And as we look at the privileges, here we come. So in terms of the custom reporting, let's have a look. So where are we? Financial reports is the standard ones. So that one, you either have no access or full access. So bear that in mind. And then in terms of the report builder, now here we go. I'm going to get lost in the weeds here on this one, Liz. Am I needing to go up or down on this one?
Where is it? It's above ad hoc time. Yeah.
So again, full access or no access to report builder. So those are the two. You got your report builder there, and you've then got your financial reports just there.
Yeah.
So
there's no granularity of access on the standards. It's all or nothing. So some of that yeah, that would be a
Yeah.
nice thing to have, I think, but it's not there at the moment.
At some point, it would be nice if we could
Yep.
essentially have a tick list, say which, or
Mm,
just rather like the custom reports, a staff list as
hmm.
to access these reports. It all depends about what's possible. But yeah, if you've got requests like that, bearing in mind, click on the blue ribbon on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can always go and put a feature request in. So we would love to hear
Yeah.
from you in terms of what you would like to see on the reporting side of things.
You kind of have to be careful who you give custom reporting access to, don't you? You can then just get a massive splurge of lots of repeated custom reports.
Yeah, we've all worked with businesses where you take a look at the list of custom reports and it is, 5 pages long, and you're
Mm,
going, why have you built 130 custom reports? It can become quite daunting.
yeah.
In terms of removing reports, it is often very, very simple. You can just highlight the ones that you don't want and click delete, and it will literally say, are you sure? You can just delete those straight away. It's not a problem. But you can also see that's where you can add your staff access as well. So if I wanted to on
Mm,
those reports, I could then say who I wanted to give access to those reports.
yeah.
Removing access, if I was just to add Dave Smith to those reports, that's fine. If I wanted now to remove Dave Smith from that, you'll notice it then gives me the remove option, and I can say I no longer want Dave Smith viewing that report. So certainly in terms of your custom reports, again, controllable in so many ways. This is what we're saying. You do the standard reports, you do have to give them access to it if you want them to see them. The custom reports, you don't have to give report builder access. You can just invite them into that report. So bear that in mind.
Yeah.
I would also say that in terms of the standard reports, and this is always where there's exceptions that prove the rule, not all of the standard reports are just within this list. So for example, if I go into jobs and jobs, you'll see that where we are, there we are. I've got my jobs list. If I click into any given job, then within there, I have a series of reports. So I can now print standard reports from within my job. And
Yeah.
probably the most common of those that we'll have a look at in just a moment is the job financial summary. So where it says print financial summary, again, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think that is the most common report that most people run within the system, at least in terms of standard reports,
Yeah.
let's say. Yeah.
I think if you were going to learn one standard report, I would learn that one.
Yeah.
And once you know how to read that one properly, that it just gives you a bird's eye view of your job. And if something doesn't look quite right, I always jump to the JFS, of Job Financial Summary, and you will see exactly what is going on. It's a good
Pretty
report.
much the first port of call, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that in just a minute, just to show you where the other reports would exist. If I go into timesheets, for example, you'll see I've got my list of timesheets there. I have the ability to drill in, either selecting everybody. You'll see under options, I have my
Mm,
timesheets and my print summary. So I can do the full timesheet or just a line by line summary of the individual. Or if I click into an individual's timesheets, again, within there, you can see it on screen. There's no additional option to print within here, but yeah, it keeps it understandable as to where these reports are. So just be aware of that. You've got them in jobs, you've got them in timesheets. I'm trying to think if we've got similar items in, no, not in quotes or anything
mm,
like that. Jobs and timesheets are your primary ones there.
yeah.
So then, let's come back to the job financial summary. We've just said there it is pretty much the most used report in terms of standard reporting. I'm just going to quickly check and see whether I've got a quotation in here. And I do. That's good. So if I click onto print PDF and go and print job financial summary on print financial summary, you can see the report on screen that it gives me. So it's giving me a standard layout. It doesn't give me any options, no choices. It just shows me the information that will be contained within this report. So I can see that I've got my job information there. So dates, names, categories, budgets, again, managers, etc., status. But then you can see that we've got that financial summary itself. So it's now showing to us the information regarding tasks and costs and breaking that down across what we had in the quote and what's happened in reality and what we've invoiced against this. So we can see, for example, in my report, if I just look at the second task there, so building regs, we can see what phase that belongs to. We can see the estimated cost that we had for that. We can see the quoted price, that we want to charge the client. We can see the actual cost of any time that we've spent on that, see what that time would be worth if we were billing it out at its normal rates. And we can see there what we have actually invoiced it for. So in this case, I've just invoiced for the full value of that line of the quote. In terms of costs, it's a very similar principle. It's looking at what that cost would have been in terms, and let's find one that's actually got both bits. So what that cost was in terms of the estimated cost to us, the quoted price for that cost to the client, and then in terms of the actual and the billable value, again, we can see here it's tracked through perfectly. So we've invoiced exactly what we thought, it's cost us exactly what we thought, and we're essentially on track. You can see at the bottom of that table, we've got a series of summaries. So there we've got the total estimated cost, the total quoted price, we've got the total actual cost, we've got the total billable value of the job so far, and then we've got the invoiced value to date. So we've obviously invoiced the entire value of the quote at this point, and we can see that from this perspective, if the job has been fully invoiced, it will start to give us a profit margin on this. So looking at that, we would have had the estimated profit based on the quote, 21.67%. But you can see there that we've now got the profit itself currently standing at 37.5%. So that is really tracking very well against what we'd thought. Now, we might not be at the end of the job. We might just have invoiced everything up front. So anything that we continue to add to this job in terms of time or costs is potentially going to just reduce this percentage profit. So that's what we've got to be aware of. The other thing to think about is that this is a current point in time. This is not historical. We can't predate this. We can't take it back to the end of last month, for example, or the start of the financial year. We can only report upon things as they are right now. And that's often true in a lot of the, well, both the custom and the standard reports, frankly.
That's right.
In terms of the time summary, it then is going to break down what time has been spent. So we can see in terms of the individual tasks, the breakdown of those hours. And you can see if we had an estimate of 10 hours, we had actual hours of 3. We can see that we've invoiced for 10. So again, we've invoiced for more hours than we've actually done, but that's because we were based on a quote. And you can see there our staff efficiency is running very well because obviously we're well under our estimate of time. So essentially, we've only done a third of the hours that we thought we were going to. Hence, we've got a very high productivity percentage on that. We can see any non-billable time. In this example, I haven't got any, but we can also see whether there is any time to be invoiced. Because it's showing us that there's no time to be invoiced, it's kind of indicative that we've had a final invoice based on the quote, and it's cleared down any of our estimated billings. Again, if anybody's interested in work in progress and estimated billings, it'll be in the recording of our webinar from Tuesday. And again, I do apologize for the audio issue that we had on that one. So yes, no such issues today. But that is a really good example of a standard report. So that job financial summary report, again, readily available under that drop down there.
Yeah,
I'm going to show you the same report in.
Just before you go on, do you want to touch on just the write on, write off? I get a lot of questions about that line in the report.
Yeah,
it's never quite clear what that's about.
Yeah.
So.
It's good to know what this is. So in terms of anything, when we're talking about a write on or a write off, this is just the difference. So let's say we invoiced for the project and we invoiced exactly the same as the billable amount, then we would have no write on or write off at all. We would have exactly hit the mark. And for service businesses where we do bill against time and we don't often use quotes, that will happen time and time again. That's fine. Where, on the other hand, we have a propensity to use quotes, we will find that it's quite common for our billable values to be either under or over the quoted price that we need to invoice our client. And this is the measure of that difference. So this is where we're getting that discrepancy, for want of a better word. Here, because it's a positive figure, this is really good. This means we've written on additional profit. So this job has actually been 1,500 more profitable than we thought it might be. If it had been the other way around and we'd overspent, or rather our potential billable value was higher than the quoted price to the client, this would then be a negative figure and we would have written off potential profit. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not profitable. It just means we're not as profitable as we should have been or as we thought we would
Yeah.
be. Yeah,
Just a
that's a
couple of things
very,
to highlight because I saw a question come up in the on the webinar
yes,
that the estimated profit and the profit, which is the actual profit. So the estimated profit is always based on the quote,
yeah,
what you thought you were going to deliver. The actual profit is simply the invoiced amount minus the total costs, as a
yeah,
percentage. So
yes,
yeah,
absolutely. It's very robust. There's not really anywhere to hide in there. You know, it's just a
mm,
straightforward calculation. So do bear
yeah,
that in.
yeah,
Um, we're not going to also force you to go into every single job and look at that report one at a time. If we go to reports, and if we look at the standard reports, we'll see that there is indeed a financial summary report. So if we scroll down, and if you think that this is a lot of reports and you're having trouble finding it, simply type it in. So financial, and you'll literally find that it will bring it down. So that job financial report, we'll see that this is then giving us a different type of view. So we're looking there, it does have a date range in terms of what to include, but it's not limiting the content of the report based on that date range, except for did the job start on that date? Or if I switch it over, was the job due to finish within that date range? The individual reports of the individual jobs will still be a current point in time.
yeah.
So if I was looking at this in this fashion, let me just see if I do have something that started within this year. I should do. There we go. And we can see that that again is that exact same layout with individual jobs one after the other. So again, very accessible. It's just a case of making sure that you've got your date range for your report suitably set up, and you can refresh it, change it, and refresh it whenever you wish. You do have filters in these standard reports as well. So again, if you want to filter it by a specific
Mm,
client, if you want to filter it by a specific job manager, if you want to do so by a specific job state, perhaps all the jobs that have now finished. So you can do all sorts of things in terms of those filters to control the information return on this report.
can be a very long report, so the filter's a good
It's
idea.
certainly something like this. I mean, look at my drag bar on the right. Let me get
Yeah.
that back. See, that is going and going and going. If I just quickly drag that down, that is, and that's
You've
just
got
looking.
27 pages on yours, haven't you?
Yeah. If you notice on the left-hand side, you've got your little three lines. If you click on your menu, it does pop it out and shows you those individual pages. So if you want to jump to a particular page, you absolutely can do. Doesn't help very much. You can't really see what's in those, but if you have an inkling of how far down the report you want to go, it's quite just a quick option to jump to.
Hmm.
But yeah, in terms of exporting, a standard report can be exported as a PDF or as a CSV. The nice thing about the CSVs from the system is that it now holds this formatting. So it won't just put it as a big mess of just line item of information after information. It will give us it in the sort of the format, the layout that we see here on screen. So yeah, it's not exactly a full-blown Excel spreadsheet, but as CSVs go, it's pretty close. It's not bad. You can always save that as an Excel spreadsheet once you've exported it.
Yeah.
In terms of options, it's not there yet, but we will be able to email that report around to anybody who we need to within the business or potentially outside the business. Again, right now, export it as the PDF and just email it using your own email supplier. So that would be the best practice in terms of those. But yes, in terms of the job itself and other information within there, I'm just going to go back to the job very briefly just to mention the other items that we had there. We're not going to go through every single report, by the way, guys. There are far too many to really cover everyone in this sort of detail. I would absolutely encourage you on the standard reports, do dig into them yourselves and have a look at each one in turn, see if it gives you information that would be relevant to you and helpful to you. And if it is that type of thing, you can favorite the main list. You can't favorite them in here, but really there's not that many to
Mm,
look at.
mm,
You can see you've got things like your estimated billings or billings by phase. You've got your job activity report, which is really, really useful. You've got your overall job report, which gives you the information on the job as a summary. The interesting one to note here is job brief. This is a report, but it's also a report that uses a custom document template. So if anybody's interested in knowing more about that, have a look at the recording of the custom document webinar that was put on last week. It will be very
mm,
illuminating, and really the job brief is possibly one of the most flexible reports that you
mm,
or documents that you can get within
definitely.
the system. I've used
Yeah.
that to do all sorts of things, anything from
Yes.
booking forms to acknowledgement letters to you name it. You can use it for all sorts of purposes. Very,
Brand
very,
documents I've used them for
yeah,
people's
absolutely.
health and safety, site health and safety,
Yep.
letters to
Everybody, oh, you
clients.
can't do you can't do standard documents in here. Well, yeah, so
You
you
can.
kind of can. Um,
Mm,
but then yeah, we'll come back to the main list of reports again, and we'll sample one or two more in here in terms of the standards, just to give you an idea of what's possible.
yeah.
So, for example,
So
we've
we
got which one? Sorry, Liz.
no, we were just going to pick up on the ones that we hear most about, but if there's any that you particularly want us to look at, just pop it in the Q&A.
Absolutely, yeah, completely true. Let us know. Did I say the productivity report was one of the ones we were going to look at here? So in
Yeah,
terms
that's a good one.
of the productivity report, you can see it was last run today because I did check it out. But if I click into that report, if I look at the date range that we've got and refresh it, notice that you've only got one option in your dates this time. This is looking at the date of the time sheets that we've recorded. And if
Mm.
I refresh that, we're then going to get a report that looks like this. So we can see that I've got two staff in my sample data. We can see we've got billable time, we've got non-billable time, we've then got our total of time, and we've got whether that is as a percentage, how we stand in terms of our utilization of our staff. So in the case of my fake person, Dave Smith, he's been 100% productive. Literally, every hour that he's put into here has been billable. Hurrah. You'll notice, however, he has not filled in a full timesheet, so that's what I'm going to go and wrap his knuckles for. In the case of me, again, haven't filled in a full timesheet, but you will see that I have some non-billable time there. So that has reduced my percentage. It's a simple comparison of billable versus non-billable, and it is literally telling me that I was just under 72% productive across that time period. You can then see that in terms of estimated versus actual hours, it gives us another ratio. So in terms of the case of Dave Smith, he had 16 hours actually put and allocated to himself. This is where we would be assigning staff to particular tasks. Those tasks would have estimated times against them. And we can see that he's only done essentially a quarter of that time. Hence, it's roughly running at about 400%, which is just knowing how to read this report. If it's in above the 100, it means we haven't done all of that estimated time just yet. So really, that's very productive. Essentially, if he was finished everything in a quarter of the time that he's done, that's why that's sitting at 400%. Likewise in mind, if we found that we'd spend more time on this than our estimate, then this obviously would be less than 100%. So we would not be 100% productive based on the estimate that we'd been given. It's then going into a fairly detailed breakdown. So in terms of the job numbers, the task names, the name of the job, then the task names, the staff, and again, on each of those occasions, whether there was an estimate of time, whether there was some actual time, and what the percentage productivity is in terms of that. So that just works its way down. Obviously, my report, I've got quite a few jobs in there, but maybe not as many as some. And you can see that it's not grouping anything by a specific job number. It's just listing out the same number and then individual tasks next to them. So each of these here, procurement management, all different tasks with different estimates next to them.
Yeah,
so
most people tend to focus on that top table, don't they? Billable versus non.
a lot of people never tend to go further than these top two parts of the section. So these two sections, and as you say, often just this one, it's fine. As long as the report is giving you what you need, that's the important part. So you don't really need to worry about anything beyond that. As long as you're getting what you need, it's doing the right job for you. What else did we have on that list of standards on this one, Liz?
Perhaps look at some time reports. Time reports are great as custom reports, but you have got a couple of good standard ones in there. Maybe the staff time summary, maybe.
Yeah,
If you
we'll
didn't,
go
if
with
you just
that.
wanted to take a overview of people's time. This is
So you'll
also
see
based on timesheets, isn't it?
it is absolutely. So it's using the same date range as before. And if I refresh that, we'll see what we then get. So you can see that it's got essentially a layout. If I click on the drop down there, you can see it's giving me either job summary or client summary. I can do it either way around there. And then it's giving me the option of what I want to include, time and amount, time and cost, or just time only. I've then got the ubiquitous filters that I can still work with as well. So I can do all sorts of things in terms of that. And you'll see that the report, if I just bring that up a touch, got 3 pages on this report. You can see that I've got Tyne Villas summarized with its jobs. You can see when we've got the individual tasks, we've got the non-billable and the amount, the billable and the amount. And if I move down, we've then got more jobs, more clients, and more of the same. So you can see how this
Do you
is then
get,
started.
yeah, you get a page per person, don't you? So you're looking at your own page. So you see each page is for each member of staff, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, what you could
Yeah.
do in terms of your filter is you could absolutely select a staff member. So if I wanted to just select my own and apply that filter, it means you're not looking at a hugely
Yeah.
detailed report. It's just that's just that one person, and you could print that. You could eventually email that to them. You can export that. Obviously, it's entirely up to you. But yeah, this is just another good example of a report that sits at a certain level of information, a summary, as this one is. We'll see if I come back to the list of reports. I just type in the word time. We'll go to the standards and we'll just do time. I want to just show what we've got there. The same information is essentially repeated. So you can see I've got staff time summary and staff time detailed. I've also got job time summary and job time detailed. And then I've got client time summary and client time detailed. So these are very similar reports, but their focus is obviously subtly different. And it's just
Yeah.
looking at the same information from a different perspective. So well
Mm.
worth having a look at those to see what you've got. Um,
Sometimes the client ones are actually used to send to the client, aren't they? Because you
yeah,
just want a PDF. You don't maybe don't show them rates or anything, but some clients request a time report. So that is a well-used report.
it certainly is. And again, if I was just to give a sample of that, that's me just summarizing for one particular client. It's 2 pages. So we've got that broken down, but it's literally just giving that summary to the client of what's happened. So this is all about what you feel comfortable sending to the client, bearing in mind that if I didn't want to break it down to this level, if I just wanted to give an overall figure, then the standard report is maybe not the best for me. But this is where we would start to think about custom reports and what we might be able to produce in terms of those.
Mm. I've seen an
So
interesting question pop up in the Q&A, which we'll cover in custom reports actually. So
certainly.
that was one
Speaking of,
from Claire. So there we are. Yeah.
okay, speaking of which, I think we can possibly sort of switch over and then have a little
Hmm.
look at custom reports themselves. So I'm going to relinquish the screen share on that one for you there, Liz, and we'll shift on over and we'll have a look.
So let's step into some custom reports. So I was trying to think of the ones that I get asked for most. One of them I would say, if I just flipped out, there are all my customs. Um, People are very interested in job costs. So if I go into this one, so the key thing about custom reports really is you you obviously need to know what you're trying to extract ahead of before you write your report. So this one, I'm trying to get a list of all my individual costs that have been spent on a job, and I'd like to group them by supplier. So I want to see which supplier I've been using. So sort of fundamentals first, give it a name that actually makes sense. I do use the description field because you can then mouse over the little I and people can have a bit of an explanation about what the report is about.
Certainly, if you've got a number of reports that are of a similar
Yeah,
type, it's helpful to have just
yeah,
that little narrative next to them, so
definitely.
you know which one you want to use.
And then the report type, you will get used to all of these. Some of them are completely obvious, and if you're doing a client report, you're gonna pick the client and contact table. So there's other ones where you need a bit of practice to know, but these are essentially the tables behind Workflow Max. So once you understand what data is in the table, and you'd only do that through trial and error, you'll be able to build a report easily.
Do me a
So
favor, Liz, down that list. Let's just have a little look at exactly how long that list is, because there's quite a lot of options in there.
yes.
As we
So
said, you can report upon basically anything within
almost
Workflow
anything.
Max.
Yeah, you can.
So it's,
So
yeah,
yeah, that's your window in, isn't it?
it is. It absolutely
Which
is.
is quite interesting. So I also, I mean, you and I see lots of other systems as well, and you don't often get a report builder in job management systems. So it's quite a unique thing in workflow. So definitely one to take
It,
advantage
it
of.
is hugely powerful. I mean, we can't really
Yeah,
understate how powerful that is in terms of what it offers you.
yeah,
Yeah, a number of systems that are out there, you would have to actually go to the provider and apply to have a custom report built for you, and
yes,
that will have
exactly.
a
Yeah,
cost. So
yeah,
yeah, bear that in mind. You know, you get
yeah.
this all as part and parcel of Workflow Max itself.
Yeah. So I focused on a job cost report, and where that information lives on screen is in this cost table. So
Yeah.
I might be building a custom report that I just want to drill down on one job, or I want to pull in all my jobs this month and see what are my costs. Or I might even want to drill down a bit more and say, I'm interested in a very particular cost. So I'm interested in my staff travel costs this month. So I'm picking up mileage, accommodation, subsistence, that kind of thing. So that's all possible via a job cost report. Once you've done that, you'll be selecting your fields. And again, the field names are pretty obvious. There's just some nuances that you will need to sort of learn, which one refers to the actual cost, not the price, that kind of thing, and some other things. But here you've got a list of these are all the possible fields that you can select for your report. So you cannot add in new fields. What Workflow Max has done is kind of joined those tables underneath for you and giving you a list of available fields. So, sometimes you will find that, oh yeah, I did want job description, but I wanted the PO number for that particular cost, the purchase order number that it belongs to or something like that. So, sometimes you'll find yourself building two reports just to get that information, but
I think
such
it's
as it
worth
is.
noting how the names are made up of these fields. The first bit that's in
Mm,
bracket is referring to the table that the
yes,
information lives in. So there we've got the job cost table, but you might have also seen in there that you had the higher level table of just the job information, so the job table.
yeah,
Many reports will include things like the client table for client information. So
yeah,
it's all just about looking at those tables and seeing whether they contain the information that you require.
yeah,
As you said on that example, Liz, there is no purchase order table available within this report, so we wouldn't be able
exactly.
to put that information.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
So,
Uh,
yep, choose your fields. You can drag them around. The one that is in pole position here, in first position, that's the one that you can choose if you wish to group by. So it will sort of group all the entries underneath that first one. So those are my fields. The next is you've got to tell Workflow Max what data to select. And this is the main reason why people don't get the information they want out of their report, really, because the criteria
um,
is wrong.
yeah.
So
Actually, the date particularly
the
is
date,
the
yeah.
yeah.
So you've got the combination of think of the date as that is the main selection criteria. It's the one that's going to get the first big scoop of stuff. And then the next bit, you may want to thin out that list of stuff that comes back by putting in your parameters. So anyone who struggles with logic, you might have a little bit of logic issues going on here also, because you might have, I'd like to select A and B and C, or I'd like D. So, that what comes out of report will depend on the logic that you use here. But yeah, that's just still practice. So for me, I'm interested in going back to September 24 to end of April. It's obviously in the future. I do want my jobs to be an actual cost. So that is a really useful field. So that field refers to the green, when you toggle a cost to actual, that's what that field, obviously I don't have one here. That's what that means. I'm not interested in estimated cost because I haven't spent the money. So
Yeah, exactly.
status is a great one to include, the job status. I'm not interested in my completed or cancelled jobs. Let's just thin it down to my live ones.
Just
In
going to
this
make a mention of that particular type of filter, where it says
yeah.
excludes. This always catches me out. It
Mm,
always starts with the criteria of excludes, whether it be a status, whether it be a type of information.
yes.
It always starts with excludes. If you want to turn that around and include something explicitly instead, you need to
Yes.
remember to click on the drop down there. I always
Yeah.
forget. So,
Yes. A little bit annoying, isn't it? It's contra to what your brain
oh,
works
it's
by, I think. But
just the
anyway.
way it is, but it
Yeah.
still works. It's absolutely
Yeah,
fine.
it does. does. So I've excluded those. I am putting in a job number into this one because I'm only interested in one job. But again, you may want all jobs, in which case you would have the job number or the job summary field up here, and then you group all your costs nicely beneath that. But just for demonstration purposes.
Yeah.
Choose if you want a grouping. Groupings are really useful for the ability to read it on screen. If you don't group, it's a flat table, as if you're looking at Excel. The advantage of that is if you do want to export to CSV, it's far easier to deal with data in a tabular format than a grouping row and then the next rows. But for purpose of showing you this, I will be grouped. I rarely use this. This is the ability to drop the last field onto a next line. I never knew why that was there, but I'm not going to give it too much.
I've seen it used occasionally for sort of notes and things like that, but it's very rare.
Yeah,
very rare.
Yeah. Your permissions is what David was discussing before. These are the people who have access to everything. Who's going to have access to this report? So you don't need to give everybody access to reports. The really nice accounts that run on Workflow have a set of reports per role. So they'll have a set of reports for project manager, one for project directors, one for timesheeters, so that everybody has their little set of reports they can run at any time that they want.
Can you imagine if we were able to invite people in based on the role that they'd been given?
That would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah.
That would be good.
This one's important, this drop down, because it does say what the person viewing the report, they may or may not have access to the screen that I have. So you may want them to be able to change the criteria. So if they might want to look at a different set of months than I've put here, so make sure you allow them to change the date. There's only two options really. You can't change anything. Well, there are three, but you can change the date or you can change all of the criteria. So I can't say you can change the status, but you can't change this. It's all or nothing. But yeah, that makes sense. It gives them greater flexibility to run the report. If I do say, I personally don't use the preview or view. I just go straight to save and generate.
But if you don't want the report, it's very easy to delete it as well. So it's not like you keep it.
So there's my grouping. So for my particular job, this is what I've spent with Ace Builders. So it will sum up your amounts. I've spent just over 10,000. Denman's that. I've got something without a supplier. So the other use of custom reports is it highlights where data is missing. And typically, you get jobs without categories, costs without suppliers, etc. So imagine we were, just to address one of the questions, we were wanting to pull out the staff mileage. That would be very easy to do, because all I would need to do would be to have an additional filter, which I can set up in my report. I'd be filtering based on my job cost name. So I would be looking at mileage. I don't know if I've got mileage, but so it just becomes another criteria. So that's a very, very common report that people have in their system, so that each user can check their own. And there's the other filter I was going to say isn't it what is a new one called active user or
logged in user? Yes.
Logged in user.
It is down. It's down as a staff name. So essentially, I don't know whether we'd be able to access it here, but when you edit the report, how would we edit the report, Liz?
So if I want to go back to my edit screen, options, edit.
Yeah. Within the section 5 about who it is, it's going to be a drop down there. It's literally the first one, or it was the first one in the list. So
I think I'm going to have
whether it's rolled out in every single report, but
okay, maybe not yet. I saw it on the job report, but it's it allows you to select the logged in user, so you don't have to put a filter in for your own name, which is quite cool. So I could just run that with my own logged in name, and it would just give me my mileage for that, for that time or whatever.
It saves
so that's
so many reports.
So job cost reports are brilliant for getting a summary of everything that you spent in 1 month across all your jobs. Drill down into employee expenses. And they're also good for just troubleshooting it. If you look on your job financial summary and you think that doesn't look right, just create a custom report. It will pull out all of your spends. So that is a good one. Another one that we see often is people wanting to look at the work in progress entries on a report. We did a webinar this week on WIP, so do go and look at recording on that. I won't delve into what is WIP, but I believe I have a WIP report and I'll show you why that is useful. WIP inquiry, a really common one, because WIP is every single transaction that a job has had in the system, so it's a very handy thing to look at. It's not about your WIP, your current WIP balance. It's just about show me all of the time that's gone to the job, everything I've billed and everything I've spent. So it's a very useful one. So I'm using the interested in, well, I'll run it and you'll see what I mean. I'm interested in plugging in a job just to see what the WIP is. So there's everything I've spent on my job, which is 10261. And I can see there what it is, the description. So this was a time entry. I spent some money, I've development license. I've raised an invoice, which is an interim. So you can see every transaction on that job, which is another very, very common one. People write a lot of reports based on time, don't they?
They do.
Time sheets. So you saw the standard reports on job time summary, staff time summary, etc. You can totally build your own, and you can break them down by start. You might want a report by staff. You might want it by job. I haven't got one pre-built, so I will build this one quickly and then hand back to you for POs, because we know that people ask us about. So let's say time by staff. So we know that this one is going to be a timesheet report. So I'm not interested in invoice time. That's something slightly different. I'm interested in actual timesheets. So I'm going to want the staff name. I'm going to want the date of the timesheet.
Yep.
I'm going to want the job number. I'm going to want the time that they spent. I'm interested in the rate as well, the billable rate, and I'm interested in the total billable value of that time. So time billable. I'm going to highlight these two fields where you see a totaled in brackets. These fields are really good for pulling out one line. So say I had 20 timesheet entries to my task, which was, I don't know, report writing. If in the report I didn't want the 20 time entries, I just wanted one line that said Liz has done a total of 10 hours on report writing, I would use this either time totaled, or I'm just billable amount totaled, but the totaled line nicely wraps it up into one line. So that is a good way to summarize. Billable, I'm going to use billable amount.
That'll be fine.
Yeah. I don't know can't remember what I've got in here, so I'll go back a bit. Let's go there. So that's my date range for the timesheets.
On the drop down there, Liz, just pick up staff name for me. So yeah, on the way you are, on your section 3. I just want to reiterate where we were talking about the logged in staff member. Click staff name and just show us the first option in the criteria it gives us. So click on that drop down.
There it is, staff. There he is. Yes.
The report. Yeah.
Yeah. So there it is. So that is useful. So let's use that. And it's nicely said excludes, which I changed to includes. So this will show my time only.
I wonder why all of a sudden you can't see your time, but you can see everybody else's.
So this means that we only have to write one report, because we know that each person running it is only going to get their own time, which is massively useful. So
yeah.
Am I going to group this? Don't need, well, actually, let's group it by job then, because I'm already it's only based on one person anyway. So let's do that. If I group that based on job, save and generate, and see what time I've done in that. Time reports are probably the most used custom report. So there's my job number. There's all my entries. there's my time, there's my rates, there's the total billable amount. If I wanted to squash all that up into one line to say on 10065, Liz has done however many hours by task, I could do that. And I can even squash it down to one line per job. So you
Yeah,
can really hone it in to get the information you need.
it's
And then it
absolutely
will
true.
give me, at the end, it will give you a total of time and a total of billable amount. So time reports, massively useful.
Definitely, definitely. Um,
Good.
yes. Let's
Do you want to do some
have a look.
PO stuff?
I'll take over again, absolutely, and we'll have a look at a PO report. So I will share my screen again. And just the same, clicking to create a custom report once we're into the report section. And the report types, I'm going to type in purchase, and I want you to have a little look at what's available. So you can see that we've got different layers of report available to us here. The purchase order report is the overarching report about the purchase orders themselves. We then have the purchase order cost. This is looking at the individual line items of cost within the purchase order. We've then got the purchase order receipt report. So this is referring essentially to the receipts that we've made against those individual purchase orders. And then we've got the line items within those receipts as well. So if you wanted to go and look at what quantity you've received of a certain item on a certain date on a certain purchase order, that would be the report that you were looking at. Probably the most common, I would say, is just the costs. So that's the one that I'm going to focus on right now. So again, I could give my report a specific name. If I'm building a custom report myself and it's not ready yet, if I haven't finished it, I tend to just put my initials at the end, or possibly the word test or something like that, just so that people are aware that this might not be ready to view in general just yet. So there's always the ability just to distinguish between those that are finished and we're ready to use and those that we're still working on building. In terms of the layout table, again, there will be other layouts introduced eventually so that you'll have things like monthly summary reports, pie charts, bar charts, but they're a little way off in the future. Looking at the selected fields, I can, if I know what I'm looking for, simply scroll up and down, and as Liz was doing, just tick the boxes that I'm after. So you'll see again, we've got two different tables. We've got the name of, or the purchase order itself, and then we've got the individual cost lines as the purchase order costs. So I'm going to take cost name, cost notes. I'm going to take ordered, received. I'm going to take a unit cost, and I'm going to take, do I need anything else in terms of those? Possibly not at this point. Maybe the code, purchase order cost. Let's have a look. Yeah, you can see I'm selecting quite a number of those because they might be very, very relevant to what I'm looking for. In terms of the order itself, I might choose that might be the job number that belongs to. But bearing in mind a purchase order can cover more than one job. So again, they're possibly just the PO number itself. I might include the supplier. I'm going to use that to illustrate a restriction or a limitation in terms of what we can achieve with a custom report. So I'm going to push both of these to the top. So I'm going to have my purchase order number first and then my supplier. I could do it the other way around if I wanted to. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my date range. So that's my PO date, which is perfectly fair. There are no other date ranges that I can use within this. So again, I'm just going to choose this year, which is fine. And then if I wanted to, I could restrict this by, for example, a supplier or a status of the order, or I could restrict it to a certain job number or whatever, a particular date, or a cost type. I'm going to group it because, again, why not? And then I could invite in whoever else I wanted to view that report as well. I'll just bring Dave Smith in as well. Say we can change the criteria. So then from there, I'm going to save and generate that report. And we can now see, I haven't got many on here, but we can see that if I'm actually going to open up that date range a little bit. I'm going to push that back to 2021. We'll push that forward to, notice when I choose a really old date, my second date is backwards. So the best way to avoid any issues with that is just click in, select the year that you want, select the month that you want, and then select the day that you want. So again, I'll put that to the end of the month, and that will just save any sort of conniptions when we're trying to put a date range into the report. That's a little better. So we can see we've got a number of purchase orders. You can see where I've got more than one line. It's listing the supplier twice. So I can't just have in this sort of grouping at the top, the purchase order followed by the name of the supplier. I can't do that. So you'll see that has to then be represented on every line under that particular grouping. It's just because we can only have one grouping, essentially, within a custom report. But then we can see exactly what we've got. We know what the cost name was. We know if there were any notes that have been added to that. Often you will find that cost names can be quite generic, and then the note is used to be more specific about what the cost was. We can then see our quantity ordered, quantity received, what the cost to us was, and what the overall cost or the unit cost to us was, and the overall cost of that. So for example, if I'd had a quantity of 2 at 500, this would be 1,000 on the right-hand side. So again, just an ability to then view that information very, very quickly. If I want to make the report a little wider, I can just click on these arrows at the side. And then if I want to filter that, add a condition and set, for example, bring that down to a specific job or purchase order number, I could absolutely do so on a case-by-case basis within the report. If I wanted to make that a more permanent restriction, then again, I would go back and edit that report, and I would then look at adding that in as a criteria in section 3. If I wanted to then create another report of a very similar nature, I can actually just copy this original report. So instead of having to build it again from scratch, I can choose to copy the report, and then I can make amendments to that new version that might be a lot quicker than in some reports where we've got dozens of fields, going through and then rebuilding that entirely, or not being sure the order in which I had my data or what criteria I had set. I can easily copy it and then start from that point. So yeah, things like purchase orders, again, very, very common. There is nothing really in standard reporting that will help you look at that. So the custom report really does come into its own when we're dealing with that sort of thing. I would say that it's also true that if you've got custom fields in your system and wherever you can place those, your client records, your job records, your task and cost records, you can pull those custom fields through into your reporting as well. So in your custom reporting, you can include your custom fields. Finally, I would certainly say that in terms of other information, there is often information available as fields within these custom reports that is not represented directly within a job or cost record itself. A primary example would be in terms of a job cost report. If I go to job cost report here, I don't know whether I've got it listed. No, so I'm just going to edit that.
Yeah.
And we're going to see that we can actually, I might have it because it's the first field, I think.
Oh,
Cost
yeah.
I. So there we go. You notice it had my name listed there. So in terms of that, I am not restricting it to just myself, but I was I'm the only person who enters things in this system. So yes, it is just looking at me. But if there were lots of other people adding costs in, this would be then grouping it by their names. So that can be really very useful if you're looking at a higher or to compare, say, for example, travel costs by different staff members or something like that. We can really, the sky is the limit in terms of custom reporting. If you can think about it, there's usually a way in which you can either produce it completely or almost completely. So start with a wish list is very much what I would suggest, is that if you're unsure, don't just start flailing around in the report builder. Start with a concrete idea of what it is you want to achieve, and then go and look at which report will give you the best possible match to that. We're just about out of time on that, Liz. Have we got any questions that we might be needing to address there? Let's just have a little look.
No, I think all the questions are answered. You just need to, it's just practice with custom reports, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's
trial and error, I'm afraid.
Trial and error. Yeah, absolutely. But don't be afraid of it. You can't harm anything. You're not going to damage any of the data in your system. This is simply looking data that is already in your system. I will make that's just reminded me of one quick thing I do think is worth noting. It's very easy to report on information that is in the system. It is nigh on impossible to report on information that is not in the system. So if you want to say, I want to look at all of my clients who don't have a job manager, you can just about do that by putting a criterion where it says job manager equals, and then leave the field empty. If it's something else where it might be, for example, I want to have a look at all the jobs that don't have a quote, that's not as easy. Things like that become really quite difficult to try and achieve. in terms of the reporting in the system. So
Yeah.
yeah, wherever possible, try and look at information that is there.
It doesn't report well on null values, so you can't say where the date is null, or the example you just gave about does it have a quote, you're far better off using the field has quote, and then you will filter on the no, but there's no, it's not a blank field. So
This is just
yeah,
it. It's
that can get tricky.
definitely interesting. Again, there's all sorts of advice that we can offer about individual reports in this, but I would certainly say if you've got your requests, do get in touch with your
Yeah.
friendly advisor, and they will be able to assist you with that. The support team will also be able to help you as well. So by all means, do reach out if you've got questions, and everybody's there to help you get the most out of your system.
Lastly, last point to add, the other really good use of custom reports is use them as control reports. So you're not reporting on them to get the data out, you're looking for holes in your data. So for example, things like all of my jobs that if job category is important to you for revenue reporting, have a control report that says, show me all my live jobs that, group them by category so I can see where I don't have a category, or show me jobs that have no time on them this month, or things like that, things that you want to stay on top of. Show me timesheets where I just want to have a look where someone hasn't entered their 37.5 or 40 hours or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll also note that there is only one date range within a report. So it's not like you can report upon week by week, for example, in the same report. You would have to run that report multiple times and state separate time periods for that report. Again, as we move forward with the system and things like monthly summary reports become available, we'll be able to do a little bit more like that, but it not necessarily to really granular levels. It's something that, again, we just have to be aware of the restrictions that these custom built reports will have. Often why a standard report can be a lot more useful in some cases, because the layout, the formatting of those reports is specific. It's a lot more detailed in some cases than you can achieve within a custom report. So again, don't just ignore the standard reports, but do, where possible, if you can use a standard, it's great. But if you can't, this is where the custom reports will really come into their own.
And when you're exporting to Excel, I mean, it depends how confident you are in Excel, but I have a lot of clients who build quite nice dashboards in Excel, and they just drop the reports into a specific, they drop the data into a specific tab, and they run something in Excel, pivot tables, summaries, etc. So that's probably a next level. And the level after that, if you just want to flip to the integrations tab on the settings.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So if we go into things,
if you were interested in a more sophisticated reporting approach, there are some app partners in the catalog which do specialize in insights. So I know Sync Hub. I've used Sync Hub, where you can push the data up to workflow to the cloud and then bring it down into either into Excel or into a database. Dashboard Insights, they specialize in building dashboards for Workflow Max. So that's sort of another level, isn't it? But
absolutely,
it's a viable one.
It is, and again, it should not be underestimated. The fact is that most of these systems can bring information in from more than one platform. So again, Workflow Max will be only part of that information. You might be bringing information through from a financial system. You might be bringing information through from an HR system, whatever it may be that you want to combine in here. It's all really great ways of presenting that information for your business. So do bear those in mind. Absolutely.
Yeah. We better sign off and let these people get to work, haven't we?
I was going to say we're running over very slightly, but not too badly at this. So go enjoy your days, folks. Thank you so much.
Thanks for attending.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you again for the next webinars. Again, the link was in the system for the list of topics. So go have a look and enjoy yourselves. And we'll see you again soon for the next one. All right. Take care for now. Bye, folks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.